Well, Dr. Sarah Hardison joins me now from Cambridge. She is the head of regulatory at Clarivate Analytics. Thank you so much for talking with us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So news of a second coronavirus vaccine being trialled in the US is exactly what everyone wants to hear. We need some hope. We've been told a vaccine will take 12 to 18 months. Can you see any situation where this could happen sooner than that time frame?
Well, the regulatory agencies, we're talking about the FDA with regards to the Inovio trial that you're talking about. The agencies definitely want to make sure that a new vaccine is safe and effective before they release it to the general population. That's the role of the agency in society, and that will be their goals. So we'll have to make sure that it is safe. Like you mentioned, it's in phase 1 trials right now. Those trials are geared towards checking safety. Phase 2 trials will look at dose escalation and dose finding. And phase 3 trials will look at the pivotal trials that will look at whether or not it's effective.
Right.
There is a precedence for using drugs out of. I can hear you. Okay.
Yes. No. Please keep going. Yes.
Okay. So there is a historical precedence for releasing drugs or approving drugs out of phase 2 if they show that they're highly effective. We've seen this in oncology cases where you have a patient population with a real critical need. And I think everyone will agree that we have real critical need. And so there is a precedence out of phase 2 to approve drugs and get them out there more quickly.
I think a lot of people would be eager to hear that. And Doctor, while we await a vaccine or a viable treatment at least, our only weapon appears to be social distancing and good hand hygiene. And there is evidence that that is starting to work. How important is it that we continue doing all of that, even when we see a flattening of that curve? And will it need to become a part of normal life for maybe a long time ahead of us?
Absolutely. While we wait on a vaccine, which is a really critical piece to all of this, there are drugs that are in development that can help treat patients. But really, to prevent the spread of the infection, we need a vaccine. A lot of people are talking recently about protective antibodies and people who make antibodies, but we don't know what kind of long-term protection those antibodies will afford you, or even how quickly the virus might mutate. We know that influenza mutates enough such that we have to have a different vaccine for it every year. And for coronavirus, we know that it mutates at a slower rate, but we're not exactly sure how quickly it mutates, and will it look different in winter. So even if you've been exposed to it now and you have protective antibodies against it, that doesn't necessarily mean that later down the road you'll still be protected. So It will be really important to shelter in place until we're absolutely sure that we know that there is enough virus that has cleared the general population that it's safe to emerge again. So I think the thing that we will all need to do is keep having fortitude and keep doing the government recommends.
Yes, I think we've all learned a lot of lessons with this, and I did want to ask you, what do regulatory authorities need to be doing to speed up access to COVID-19 testing, antibody testing that you mentioned, antiviral and antibody treatments, and ultimately the vaccine? Because that whole process of approving these things, certainly we've seen in the United States, it's very slow, it's encumbered by a lot of bureaucratic hurdles.
So the FDA has enacted a number of different policies to accelerate. They have the CTAP, which is the Coronavirus Therapy Acceleration Plan that they launched last week. And so that includes a number of different measures that will allow trials to be enacted more quickly. They're engaging senior level people in the organization to review trial applications and give advice on how to collect that efficacy data that's going to be so critical to get vaccines and drugs out there. They've given priority to new trials that exist around COVID, and they're working very closely with people who are developing drugs and vaccines to create the trial design that's going to generate that efficacy data quicker. So things like adaptive trial design, where you can change you can start with 5 different vaccines and whittle it down to the most effective one very quickly. They're being more I'll say generous with inclusion and exclusion criteria. So that's which patients are eligible to participate. So they're really doing all the things that they can do to open up the trial process to as many patients as they can and to accelerate it as quickly as they can, while also making sure that it's safe and effective. It's very important. I think a lot of people think about regulatory agencies being very concerned with safety and only concerned with safety, and certainly they are concerned with safety, but it's also very important to make sure that the vaccine is effective. If it's only partially effective, then we still have a problem.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for explaining that all to us. Dr. Sarah Hardison, we appreciate chatting with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I think at this point in time, it's really important to educate the public on the science so that everyone can be data-driven and objective in what they talk about. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so very much.